There are not many leaders in the world who receive the kind of attention India's Modi and Italy's Giorgia Meloni get, especially when they are together. So what is the chemistry behind this so-called bonding and these smiles? And how does Italian media see all this? To start with, let's take a look at these posts or memes that are frequently shared on X and other social media platforms in India. This one. This one. This one. And more. But that's not everything. On social media, one can even find romantic songs that the Indian Prime Minister's AI-generated voice delivers, connecting him and the Italian Prime Minister in a strange way, giving it a kind of weird romantic twist. Some of them, it seems, aim to create a weird perception that the Indian Prime Minister and the Italian Prime Minister fancy each other. Now, I can tell you that I have spent a lot of time in Italy interacting with the locals, and most of the people I have spoken with have no clue about these Modi-Meloni social media trends or memes in India. But how about the Italian media? What do they think of Modi? How do they treat India? Well, before I try to answer that, let's explore what could be behind all these smiles when these two leaders meet. So India's Prime Minister seems to be the kind of a leader who is, in a way, well aware of the developments taking place on social media. Not too long ago, he even reacted to a meme that showed a dancing character resembling him, and he took it with a positive spirit. So yes, it might be possible that the two leaders in a casual conversation have talked about those silly memes that netizens make about them, and they might have laughed about them too. In a civilized society, there should be a place for political humor and satire when executed responsibly. But on the other hand, there are those who feel that trends such as these are not very helpful and may be perceived as insensitive by the family members of these two leaders. And of course, many journalists in the Italian media have no clue about the silly memes that often go viral in India. On the other hand, while celebrating the so-called chemistry between Meloni and Modi, Indian netizens should not overlook that the Italian Prime Minister is related to a political background where neo-fascism, racism and hatred against non-whites and non-Christians, in a way, appears quite mainstream. And in that twisted political ideology, Hindus, non-Christians and Indians are not considered equals. Yes, it has been observed that Meloni has overseen a takeover of the public broadcaster and a continuing attempt to change the Italian constitution to expand executive power. Besides that, a subtle campaign to commemorate fascist figures should not be seen as a surprise in a country that is the mother of fascism. And listen carefully, all over the country, monuments to Italy's fascist past remain, such as an obelisk bearing Mussolini's name in front of Rome's Olympic Stadium. As observed here, fascism in Italy never died. It was beaten militarily, but it was not defeated culturally. In some way, it is in the stomach of the country, and it re-emerges at times of weakness. If Italy is the mother of fascism, then Germany is the mother of Nazism. Despite the prevalent neo-Nazism or neo-fascism, multiple Western colonial criminal states, even today, manage to escape proper scrutiny because of their massive hard and soft power. A lot of that hard and soft power has been built through wealth earned through looting or colonization. And please, don't be confused. These Western leaders don't necessarily love Hindus, Indian cultures, Indians or India. The warmth that one sees when Western leaders meet the Indian Prime Minister is possibly because of the financial and geopolitical greed that they have towards India. As far as the Italian media's perception regarding India's Prime Minister and India is concerned, let me tell you this. The Italian media tends to run the narrative that is often borrowed from the fellow Western colonial criminal states, and in that twisted narrative, Modi can be vilified and India can be belittled. So, do you want to know who controls or influences the Italian media and the Italian propaganda machine? Well, it is not just about Giorgia Meloni's toxic control or influence. The former Italian Prime Minister, Silvio Berlusconi, was a media tycoon himself. He was able to exert tight control over both public and private broadcasting. Many newspapers in Italy are linked to a political party. In the southern parts of Italy, where mafia gangs are strong, self-censorship because of political pressure is expected. And then there is this Vatican-friendly media. Well, you know what to expect from them about Hindus, Modi or India, right? And by the way, what was Pope Francis doing at the G7 summit? Talking about artificial intelligence. And these Western leaders have the audacity to preach to us about secularism. I mean, was the Pope's presence displaying the failed secularism model and hypocrisy of the Western colonial criminal states? Why did many media outlets fail to criticize this? Well, don't be surprised. Several years ago, ABC News reported that under Italian law, courts can sentence people to up to 5 years in prison for offending the honor of the Pope. And see what The Guardian writes about this treaty. The Pope as a sacred and inviolable person. It makes insulting him an offense in Italy, punishable by between 1 and 5 years in jail. People want to know, why is the Vatican City-State seen as an example of a religious-based authoritarian regime? And how about this book, The Dictator Pope, the inside story of the Francis papacy? Did the mainstream media in the West decide to run away from this book? If yes, then why? And what was done to the author of the book? Well, Western media sharks, you have the answer. DW, BBC, New York Times, Washington Post. How many debates or interviews have you conducted regarding this book? How many articles have you published about this book? The so-called Western pro-democracy free press. Are you ashamed of your hypocrisy or not? And please, 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 let us not forget what has been described as the secret history of fascism and the Church. According to historian David Kerzer, the Catholic Church lent strength and legitimacy to Mussolini's fascist regime. So, Joe Biden, USA's second Catholic president, I want to ask you, when you greeted the Pope, did you also ask him about this book? Did you dare ask him about the reported clashes between the Church's own canon laws and the local constitutional laws? Did you dare ask him about the prevalent homophobia and pedophilia in Catholic churches and in institutions overseen by the Church around the globe? Just within Spain, hundreds of thousands of survivors, right? What about their human rights situation? Biden, you claim to be a liberal, a Democrat, right? I thought you were against dictatorship and dictators. EU leaders, I thought you were pro-democracy, right? Now, what is happening here? And where is the overgrown Germany-based propagandist, the self-styled champion of democratic values and whose fake content I have exposed? Is he not concerned about the minority Catholic community in India being led or influenced by someone like that? As a responsible Christian, I am concerned for my Catholic brothers and sisters in India and elsewhere. So yes, dear Indians, if you have become a fan of the devout Catholic and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni just because she did Namaste, it is time to understand the bigger picture. As far as India-Italy relations are concerned, a lot of things are driven by financial and geopolitical interests. But the ties between these two regions of the world are not new. Italian port cities were important trading posts on the ancient spice route. In 2023, both sides agreed to collaborate in cybersecurity, innovation, defense, outer space, green economy, energy security and transition, defense co-production and co-innovation, blue economy. A startup bridge between India and Italian startups were established. As observed here, Italy is India's fourth largest trading partner in EU after Germany, Belgium and Netherlands. Indian companies in Italy are mainly in IT, electronics and engineering sectors. Around 600 Italian companies are present in India, representing sectors ranging from fashion and garments to insurance. Italy knows what it is doing. It desperately seeks a chunk from the growth story of the re-emergence of India as a superpower. So, dear Italians, before you decide to run any negative propaganda against India, Hindu culture or India's leaders, listen carefully. Your history textbooks may not have taught you about your country's colonial crimes in Libya and about your history properly. But I want to remind you, if Italian is still your mother tongue, you may consider thanking Indians for it. Yes, dear Italians, don't you ever forget that the Indian army has a unique historical connect with Italy. Don't you ever forget that the 4th, 8th and 10th Indian divisions with more than 50,000 troops played a significant role in advances of the Allied forces for the liberation of Italy in the Second World War. So if you truly value your freedom, the next time you say ciao to an Indian, consider showing some gratitude to Mother India for her contributions and sacrifices to save or protect you from your own fascism. See you again.